Greetings and salutations, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome once again to the Storyteller's Corner. I'm your host, Joshua T. Calkins Truberty, also known as Byron Sidious. Got my notepad here today. What have I learned from the last couple of weeks? Well, week and a half. Less than that if we are genuinely counting when these incidents occurred. In the last 7 days, I have found myself on the receiving end of not one, but two separate instances of being caught off guard by organizations that, in all honesty, I perhaps should have been a bit more suspicious of from the jump. One of these was, honestly, somewhat expected, while the other one took me rather off guard. In the full interest of transparency, the first organization that I'm going to refer to here, of which I am a member, has not ousted me just yet, though I am effectively now situated under a kind of sword of Damocles. If you don't know what that means, please look it up. You should get the idea pretty quickly. As a result of both my staunch opposition to Nikki Haley as a potential candidate for the Republican Party's nomination in the 2024 presidential election, and in combination with my adamant stance that all storytellers, regardless of how low quality or perverse or profane their artwork is, must be granted access to a space somewhere to offer their works. I have never said that these people need to be given supporters or that they should be guaranteed an audience, but simply that they need to be granted the opportunity to put their material out there for people to consider. A marketplace opening should be made available, and if they fail, well, then that's on them. Period. You don't have the ability to logically and truthfully say, well, this project failed, if you never allow the project a space in which it can either succeed or fail. If you cut it off before it can even be produced and given a chance to breathe, you're not actually letting it fail. You're saying, we're going to stop this from ever having a chance from the first place. I have been informally rebuked by Mums for Liberty. My position as communications director for the Scott County chapter is now listed as conditional and likely to be forfeit if I cannot make any and all future meetings, which, as a father of four with a full-time job, is pretty much inevitable. I am likely going to lose this position. As a politically charged outfit, though, I fully expected that this was a given from the start. There aren't many, if at all any, ideological purity tests that I would pass from any direction or any perspective, not even as a small L libertarian. I went into this post with no illusions that I would hold it through any such hard inquiry. Again, I have not been removed, I have not been ousted yet, but I suspect that's going to happen. The other organization that threw me for a bit of a loop, that really kind of has left me feeling a bit dizzy, is a result of my video just the other day regarding Senator Amy Klobuchar. If you saw my Dear Senator Klobuchar video, you know that I'm host to a great deal of trepidation when it comes to politicians sending letters to tech companies, especially the largely influential ones like Amazon. I said in that video that I would be contacting the folks at Minnesota's Loft Literary Center, and so I did. After a quick call, I was told to put together my concerns in written form for an email, and to reach out to Arleta Little, an administrator with their organization. She ended up passing things off to one Chris Jones, the Senior Director of Community Engagement. I perhaps should have known the direction the overall exchanges were going to take, however, the moment that both Miss Little and Mr. Jones included their pronouns in their letterhead. Allow me to share now the verbatim text of these messages, which I told Mr. Jones I was going to do. If anyone at the loft wishes to object to this sharing of material, bear in mind that neither of these officers of the organization raised any objection to my doing so when I relayed my intent to share this back and forth publicly. They made no objections and said nothing. So I'm going to, for the next section here, throw up on the screen the emails. So as you can see, I've got up on screen here the text of the email exchange, beginning with my first initial message. Greetings and salutations to you on this oddly grey and overcast day. It is fitting, I find, that such an external view out my kitchen window should reflect my mindset at this moment. As to why that is, I write you this missive today. Minnesota's senior senator, Amy Klobuchar, along with one of her senatorial colleagues, recently sent a letter to Amazon regarding some concerns she has with Amazon's Alexa. Of particular note, she voices concern over the smart device using the platforms Rumble and Substack as sources to cite some of the answers to questions users pose to their home units. The website Must Read Alaska has a thorough breakdown here, and I posted a link to the story. I was made aware of the situation of censoriousness by the noted journalist Glenn Greenwald, whose System Update podcast I am a regular listener of. As a user of Substack myself, using it as a venue for the publication and distribution of many of my own genre fiction works over the last 3 years and some change, I find myself disturbed that the senator would engage in this line of inquiry, since we have the historical example of what happened to the social media service, Parler, when such letters are sent to Amazon. Artistic expression must be free if it is to have any value. Of this I have steadfastly argued many times in the past. It doesn't matter if there are no willing readers/viewers/financial backers of that art. It must be allowed room to breathe, to be even seen by those curious to see it in the first place. I worry that the senator, who ostensibly represents plenty of artistically inclined persons, including those committed to your organization and its mission, is overlooking what it means to artists to have the freedom to access services like Substack and, yes, even Rumble. It would seem that in order to get rid of voices and perspectives she sociopolitically disagrees with, she would happily see our voices silenced as well, painting creative people with the same broad brush as her political detractors simply because we use the same service. Your thoughts on this matter, given privately or publicly, would be much appreciated. Signed, yours truly. The response I got from Chris Jones, the first one, follows. Dear Joshua, Arleta passed your inquiry on to me. Thank you for writing The Loft about your concerns around censorship and artistic expression. The Loft shares your values around protecting the rights of artists to produce work and freely express themselves. While we share this value, it is important to distinguish between the rights of expression and the responsibilities of information resources to vet and present factually accurate information. Here's where the weasel word language creeps in. It starts within the second paragraph. This is supposed to be an outfit that is engaged in the pursuit of free expression. And immediately, less than 2 full paragraphs in, we have weasel words in order to obfuscate their ultimate drive, which is we will protect and defend art and artistic expression that we agree with. But if you have any connection to anything that we find objectionable, we're going to say, fuck it, or find some other way to dismiss your concerns. These are distinct concerns, continuing his letter. The senator's inquiry speaks to how falsehoods get relayed via Alexa. It does not specifically name any platform as an unreliable resource. Rather, it questions specific pieces of misinformation and the vetting process behind how they came to be presented as factual by Alexa. This is obfuscation. Because it was clarified later on by the senator that The sources that people were saying concerned them, the answers, were cited by Alexa as having come from Rumble and Substack. This is weasel language. Get fucked. In our view, this is not an issue of freedom of expression, nor one of silencing voices. The original publishers of those materials have not been censored as the work remains available. For now. What do they think is intended when Ms. Klobuchar asks, Amazon, what do you intend to do to ensure the factuality and the accuracy of such statements by these services? They're going to cut those sources off from Alexa, which perfectly fine, that's within their rights to do. They are within their rights to excise sources that feed into the Alexa device. But I think we are all familiar enough with what happened to Parler and what happens to anyone who gets on the wrong side of these senators if they say things that they don't like or care for. There were tens of thousands of people who were users of Parler who didn't say a word sociopolitically. They were just creative people looking for another outlet, an alternative space to put their projects on display because they didn't want to be lost in the noise of YouTube and other mainstream platforms. They looked to it as an alternative, as someplace where they could be a medium-sized fish in a medium-sized pool instead of a teeny, 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 tiny fish in a gigantic fucking ocean. The fact that this collective doesn't seem to understand that boggles my mind. But back to it. Furthermore, the inquiry does not seek to cease general access to platforms such as Rumble or Substack. It rather asks Amazon for a better process in distinguishing between accurate and inaccurate information. Wrong. It is asking them to consider whether or not they should even turn to those platforms as a source for providing answers to users. It is asking to remove the neutrality. In all of these back to the letter. In all of these questions, it is important to remember that the right of expression does not guarantee a right to an audience. Hey, we're in agreement here. And by the way, don't fucking strawman me, Mr. Jones, because I never said there was a guarantee. I even already said in my first message, no artist is guaranteed an audience. Don't try to fucking gaslight me. Information resources do not have the responsibility to treat misinformation with the same weight as accurate information. When we ask Google if the sky is blue, we do not expect an equal number of responses saying it is green, even if we vigorously defend the right of someone to claim that it is. Again, you are strawmanning. I never claimed that, you dipshit. Sincerely, Chris Jones, Senior Director of Community Engagement. Arleta Little, Executive and Artistic Director. And you can see right here what I was talking about. Highlighting there. Popping their pronouns right into the letterhead. Here was my response to that initial letter. Your obvious inability or unwillingness to see how this situation precisely mirrors what happened in the case of Parler just a couple of years ago disappoints me. I clarified that I understand that nobody is guaranteed or promised an audience or support, but only the opportunity to try. I think if you were to look into Glenn Greenwald's recent reporting on this issue, you'd be more inclined to see exactly why this is, in point of fact, exactly about censorship. Sure, those Substack contributors have the freedom to have their work up, but as you yourself intimated in your response, that's only for now. The moment they can be silenced by Klobuchar and her colleagues, they will be. Just ask the folks at Parler. As for ensuring legitimacy of sources, I don't recall when or if the senator made that distinction in hindsight regarding any of the proven instances of misinformation from the Washington Post, New York Times, or Tumblr, which offers newsletters much like Substack does, but almost entirely from a left-wing angle. Your lack of vision or concern in these regards is stunning to me as an artistically minded person. I fully intend to pass along and make well known both my inquiry to your organization and your horrendously short-sighted response. Told you, I let them know I was going to share this. Back to Mr. Jones. Thanks for the response. I understand that you feel strongly about this, but we're going to have to move forward in disagreement, especially as this is devolving into personal attacks. He's not wrong. I did come after them. My response to his initial response to me was venomous. But what do you expect when I can see you're faffing me off and trying to gaslight me? Back to him. I do want to clarify one thing that you wrote for the record. You wrote, sure, those Substack contributors have the freedom to have their work up, but as you yourself intimated in your response, that's only for now. The moment they can be silenced by Klobuchar and her colleagues, they will be. I never intimated that, in fact. I want to be very clear that I said the opposite. How? Any work mentioned still exists and is not the subject of Klobuchar's inquiry. Yes, it is. Because her inquiry is regarding the material that is hosted by Rumble and Substack. All right? Are you dense? It is not under threat. Anyone who wants to read it still can. Again, for now. There is no part of the inquiry aimed at the source material. If your fears were to somehow play out and the senator's inquiry extended to trying to remove the source material and censoring the writers, the Loft would then stand up for those writers' rights to free expression. I doubt it at this point. I really doubt it because of all of your weasel language. The Loft is opposed to government censorship of artists or writings, such as the kind of government censorship taking place in many community libraries around the country. And he cites no resources there. No stories, no examples to give me to follow up on his claim. But notice, he says they stand against government censorship. He says nothing about whether or not they would stand against a private company cutting people off and silencing and muzzling them. Nothing to say about that. We know from the last year, from the Twitter files on, that there has been a concentrated effort to shut people up through the use of private sector actors as an end run around the protections of the First Amendment. Can you possibly be that dense? Back to his text. We always stand with writers, but like any form of speech, it comes with responsibility and accountability. Writers must be free to write what they want, but that right does not mean that they are free from accountability, nor does it entitle them to expect other resources to amplify harmful or misleading information which they write. I hope you will understand, or at least accept, this position. Here's the thing. I do accept the position of the position of that responsibility comes with accountability. I do accept that notion. What I don't accept, however, is the idea that that's applied evenly and fairly across the spectrum, because we know goddamn well that it is not. We know it's not applied evenly and hasn't been for a very long time. So I have no more written replies to offer to this feckless halfwit. I was really hoping that this organization that ostensibly stands in defense of creators and artistic minds would stand with them in this instance, but apparently they won't. So yeah, I'm frustrated. I'm flabbergasted. Although I really guess I shouldn't be surprised. Because most folks who are of a creative, artistic bent tend to be socio-politically liberal, progressive, or left-leaning. I myself tend to identify as a attempted centrist, small L libertarian, slightly to the right. But there don't seem to be any venues available or people willing to defend folks who are artists and creatives who don't come from that liberal, progressive history or perspective. Where are we to go when eventually all of the available spaces that should be made available to all creative persons throw up a barricade against anybody who is not in absolute lockstep with those folks, socio-politically speaking? Where do we go for even a neutral ground when we're choked off, throttled through algorithms, through stoppages of service because I don't want to go full-fledged and full speed into the conservative spaces, into the right wing. But those are the only platforms and only places that are left available to those of us who don't march in lockstep. You're creating your own enemies. You're pushing us off the reservation, off a cliff. And the only people willing to push a trampoline or a landing crash pad for us are the people you claim are the naughty evils. So what the fuck do you expect us to do? I wish I had an answer that was better than I don't know. But right now, that is my answer. I don't know. Cheers.